Welcome back, everyone. So that was a little journey of connecting us with some of imageries that tell the story of how a lot of our current challenges and problems are rooted in deep systems that have subjugated and extracted through the colonial project, which there's been many colonial projects over the long course of human history, but the more recent one, the 500-year Eurocentric colonial project, that has, led us a lot to this, rooted in thousands of years of theology of dominance, the idea of our dominance, the centrality, the central idea of human superiority over all life forms, and within that hierarchy, some humans having more according to skin color, according to class, according to economics, according to geography, having more dominance than other human beings and other life forms. So this next session this afternoon will be listening into, I interviewed a local Indigenous elder, Alison Ihara Brown, from the First Nations people, and to explore, beginning to explore, and then we'll be also talking to Pete, who's here in Sonoma County, where I'm based at the moment, looking at transition towns and applying the changes that we would all like to see on really practical and local levels. So really we're sort of this afternoon beginning to explore applying some of what we were with this morning, the journey we were with this morning, to practical application, both that actually is rooted into climate justice. So it's not just responding to the symptoms of our malaise, but looking at the deep roots, which is a very, very profound journey, especially for those of us that have been in majority country, not majority population, but dominant countries like the US, like the UK, colonizing countries, imperialistic countries. And those of us within those countries that have had the system in favor of us through gender, through race, through sexual orientation, and through other means, economic means, and so on, that actually give us the ability to airbrush out the impacts of the systems that we live in. So that is a sort of false privilege, really. And as I said before, we broke for our lunch break, that which I also talk a little bit to Alison about, is how when the last activism event of the cowboy and Indian against the alliance against the Keystone Pipelines, how there was the comment from one of the cowboys, rancher, how we're all Indians now. What he meant was we're all peoples that are subjected more and more to systems that are becoming unlivable, whether it's through housing not being affordable, whether it's through education not being accessible, whether it's through sort of the way that we were able through privilege to escape the consequences of the global impact of these systems that are increasingly impossible to ignore. You know, just from the weather events here in a very privileged area of the US, Marin County, Sonoma County, and so on. Not that everyone living in these counties have privilege, but just being impacted by the fires. And they're not just fires, they're infernos. I'm sure many of you who are local to Spirit Rock intimately know what that is. We do with the smoke and with evacuation and being on evacuation, standby, and the terror really of really, this is what we're in now is, and then how it's impacting insurances. A lot of thousands of people's having their insurance removed because they're in these zones that have been used to these comforts, and having to prepare houses so that they're not, your yards and things, so that they're fire safe, and you can replicate that in across the country and around the world. So this in this session, I'd also like to invite Konda to join me. But one of the things, thanks Konda, one of the things I noticed, and I also like to just pass over to Konda just now, is that when you're, and I've noticed this also, I spent, as I said, 2.5 decades living and working deeply in rural South Africa, which is a country and a part of that country that has a lot of deep trauma in it. So and poverty, massive poverty and inequity. So one's often in crisis management. It's very hard to settle things when you're in crisis management and reacting to deep set trauma in the field, in the relational field, and in the systems. And in a way, that's what we're moving into. We're moving more and more into crisis management and responding from place patternings in trauma and fear and rage and anger that can be very near the surface. And so the luxury of having space and time to really consider shifts and changes when we're in our normal frame of mind is eroding. So there's important work, not only in systems change and going beyond business as usual, but there's important work for us as meditators and teaching meditation involved in these worlds to build resilience, to understand how the nervous system reacts as the pressure and intensity increases, and it's not decreasing, it will only increase. So those are just a few thoughts. There's so many thoughts I'd like to share, but actually I'm really interested in Konda. I'm really interested in your project and the work you're doing. So you've moved from Oakland to Louisiana, which Correct. Is huge. I mean, it seems to me to be like not a small move. So you're involved in the Jubilee Justice organization that's about Black land back. Mm-hmm. Can you tell us more about it?
Yeah, thank you. I'm here in Louisiana. All of my friends are thinking I've lost my mind to go from the quote unquote blue state to the quote unquote red state. And why would I do that? And the work is here that needs to be done. The work, I believe right now, some of the most important work that needs to be done on the planet is the work of where the most harm has been done, right? We're looking at how do we mitigate harm? And there's a lot of harm is done here in our country, in the southern United States and southeast United States. In the state of Louisiana, I actually live on a plantation. I live on a former plantation, 3,600 acre former plantation. I had never been to a plantation before, and I came here to do some work, and next thing I know, I'm living here. I think my ancestors have some kind of sense of humor to have me here. Never thought I'd be doing this, but clearly it's some ancestral work is happening. And, I can talk about the work that I'm doing, and it's important. And it's important to put it into context, because I think what we often do is we so often, particularly when it comes to the people social side of the problems that we face, we want to jump over it and get to the answer. Let's just jump over the history. Let's just, not hear too much about all that our ancestors, that your ancestors, that my ancestors have been involved with, particularly here in the southern United States, that actually impacted the entire country. What happened here in the 17, 18, 19, continuing, what happened here has impacted the entire United States. It created a country that is, quote unquote, the the breadbasket of the world, or the most powerful nation on the planet. It all had to do with land and race, stolen land and stolen people. And that goes into the place. So it's important for me, before I talk about the solutionary works that are happening, because there's so many wonderful nonprofits. Nonprofits are doing amazing work, and particularly down here, I'm meeting a lot of particularly folks of color, Black and brown people, who are Indigenous people, who are doing nonprofits and really cleaning up the mess, working to clean up the mess. They're like little white blood cells that are trying to attack the sickness. And so there's so many people doing such great work, and I'm just one. My organization's just one of many. So, but what's it more important right now to begin to talk about the work is to talk about why I have to do the work that I do. What happened here? What actually happened here? And the details, we tend to skip over. Like, we all know that something bad happened here, and it continues to happen. I think the murder of Mr. George Floyd woke a lot of people up who thought that the race issue was solved when we had a President Obama. They thought the race issue was solved in America, and it has not been solved. As a matter of fact, the election of President Obama was ignited the underground that has been here and bubbling, and it is taking off like crazy. Then Trump, in the Trump era, gave them permission to just stand up and say their names. So we are living in a time that's very difficult, and it's all connected. We are here. I'm sure you came here because you wanted to talk about climate. You wanted to hear about climate. You wanted to talk about what is happening. How can we get involved? What's going on? How can we make it better? I'm going to talk about the social aspect of climate. It's all interconnected. There is no difference between the two. It's the same mind of extraction. It's the same mindset that has thrown away a child here in Louisiana, that has also thrown a bottle of Coke into a river. It's the same mind. And so I want to look back, and we've been talking about this idea of separation. This separation is at the core. How, again, we have separated ourselves, from each other, from all species that are so beautiful here on this planet. And of course, the soil and the earth and the trees and the rivers and everything, how we have separated ourselves. And you may think that you're not separate, because you're here, because you love something so much that you're spending your whole day here. This is wonderful. And we know that there's a big divide still between what we are able to benefit from, because there's benefit to how the world is being destroyed. On the one side of it is being destroyed. On the other side, there's quote unquote benefit, or privilege of having the kinds of homes that we do, and being able to turn on the electricity and being able to do all these things. And I don't know about you, but every time I'm in a plane or anytime I'm in a car, this cognitive dissonance happens within me. I'm guilty. I'm guilty. And so I want to talk about what happened here around race, and how the hierarchy that we've been pointing to, this separation, then based on this hierarchy, these false hierarchy, these lies, actually, and this hierarchy around race. And that we built systems, we built institutions, we have built an entire country that benefits those with white skin. Now, you may say that you may be someone that hasn't benefited, or you don't have this, or you don't have resources. That might be true, and I'm sure that there's a lot of white-skinned people who don't. It's not to say that that's not what I'm saying, but what I am saying is that this country built every system. the educational system, the medical system, financial system, the incarceration system, the social system, every system is built in a way that people with white skin privilege have more access to the good stuff. And people with brown skin are left with the bad stuff, the stuff and lack of access. There's also somehow, since I've come to Louisiana, I realize in working with Black farmers, I realized that somehow there's a message, there's this message around the land, and that Black people and Black farmers are not supposed to have any. And so there is a system that's called the US government, that's called private business, that's called individuals. There is a system that has systematically taken land away that they have been stewarding. In the 1920s, after emancipation, and I think you all probably were, most of us are old enough here, I don't know how many younger people we have, to understand what happened with slavery and then in 1865 and the emancipation and what have you, and that even with all the Jim Crow laws, with everything possible to stop Black people from progressing and having a real life of well-being, even with all of that, they managed to amass about 20 million acres of farmland in America in the 1920 census. There was 20 million acres that they were farming collectively. 1920s. Now, that 20 million has gone down to 2 million. 30,000 acres a year is being confiscated. 30,000 acres every year is being taken right now, today, in the USA. This is why I'm here. This is why I'm here, because this lie that white skin privilege is the ones who own. First, the whole ownership class is something that I don't ascribe to, period, owning land, but stewarding the land. So it's a real problem. I think about the selfie, not the selfie, the camera that brought George Floyd to all of our homes across the world. The world was outraged. We were also at a time of COVID and everybody was sensitive. People were sensitive. That selfie, that cell phone brought George Floyd and what happened to him to the entire world. And we were outraged. White children in the street as outraged as Black children. It was amazing for me as a Black woman in America to see. I'd never seen it before. I've seen my community outraged, but I'd never seen the white community outraged like that. What's happening here in the South? There are no cell phones. There's nobody showing how it works and how the racism and the discrimination works. So it's going under the cover. I can give you statistics that will blow your mind. That was new for me, because there's no light being shown on what is happening to Black and Indigenous and Brown people here in this country, in the rural part of our country. It's outrageous. So that's why I'm here. I left Oakland, California to come and do this work. I started a nonprofit. We're working with Black farmers. We're taking what little land that they have, which are usually smaller plots, way smaller than their white counterparts. They don't have access to capital. They don't have access to, not equal access to anything, any information. And so what we're doing is we're bringing a climate resilient way of growing rice. And it's climate resilient as well. We're bringing back rice to Black farmers who started the rice in the first place here in this country, in South Carolina. You may not know that when the Europeans went to West Africa, and I saw the slave ship, oh my gosh, when they went to West Africa and were enslaving people, they saw rice cultivation and they said, we need that here. Grabbed those who were cultivating rice and brought them to South Carolina and in the swamps with the alligators and the snakes and said, do what you did there, here. And they had to do that. Rice was the biggest crop in America in the 1700s from Africans who were enslaved. So as soon as emancipation happened, they left. They're like, I'm out. I'm not doing this anymore. So what my company is doing, what our nonprofit is doing, is bringing that back and claiming rice again in a climate resilient way, which you can look up, and it's called System of Rice Intensification. We'll make sure that there's that. It's in the things that the guide that you have. It's incredible. It's absolutely working to mitigate climate and global warming. And it's this incredible intersection of social justice because we're bringing this way of growing rice to Black farmers, and we're spreading out to Indigenous farmers next, so that they, for the first time, are in front of the bus with something new and innovative in agriculture. And my nonprofit is helping make that happen. And we're also putting them together into a cooperative so that the farmers are learning from each other, communities of practice. And then little did I know, but the next thing I had to do was buy a rice mill, because the middle person is the one who takes all the money. I was like, okay, we got to buy a rice mill now. So I bought it. I bought a rice mill. And the farmers own the rice mill. And it's on and on. So there's a lot to say about that. You can look at the website, but that is just one way of plugging a hole. Keeping their land, allowing them to keep their land, that loss of 30,000 acres. So many farmers are the next one in that 30,000. I'm grabbing them, hopefully, so that they don't lose their land. And so that we can also bring the brilliance of this method of growing to the young people who are now wanting to get back to the land. And that land is being offered to us in different ways. So it's a beautiful thing that's happening right now. So what I want to talk about, and what I just want to stress, and what I've talked about, is the cause. You know, the cause, this separation, this hierarchy, this privilege that we have created, humans over everything else, all the land, all the species. Humans at the top, not equal to anything. And in that category of humans, we have stratified. You know the story. We don't like to face it. That is as important as everything else we're living. Because if we don't do the human thing right, if we can't do this together, how are we going to do the rest of it? Everybody is needed. Everybody, every being is needed. And there's a lot of throwaway people on the planet right now in this country. Throwing them away instead of investing in their brilliance. We have to do this together. In order to do any of it, we have to do all of it. So it's even more massive. It's even more massive than what we talked about in the first half. Yes, it is. It is. And we have to do it all. That's just the gig. And we're here at this time to do that. So I want to thank you for being here today and listening. And may we decide to stop this gap. May we decide to face the discomfort. It's not comfortable, but it's doable, and we can do it. If not us, who? If not us, then who? Peace and blessings.
Thank you so much. Whoa, thank you so much, Konda, and for your words, for your summary, for your work, for your focus, for your encouragement. And I personally, and I'm sure all of us together, wish you all power and success. And I'm so glad that Spirit Rock, part of this day, is going to benefit Jubilee Justice, your project. And, you know, as Rupert was encouraging us all, those, you know, that hold wealth, and even, you know, one doesn't have to hold wealth, but we all have assets and privileges in so many ways that we think we rather than I. And that's a really big shift from in Southern Africa, Ubuntu, I am who I am because of you. You are who you are because of me. That we bring that culture into play, because that's how we need to think in these days. And I love that you landed with us in a place of discomfort, because this is where the Buddha landed us. There is dukkha, and dukkha has to be faced, and that the empowerment of that process of actually looking then at causes, addressing the causes, that they can be overcome, and a path of peace can be walked. To translate that internal individual practice into the systemic and the collective is now our task, I feel, as practitioners. So thank you so much, Konda, so deeply.
You're so welcome. Thank you.
Thanks to you and your work.